giving you a vocational leg up on everyone else. Here's our career Sherpa, Julie Bauke.
Yeah, so you may have heard, one of those things you look at, right? Amazon is hiring 100,000 people. And this is not seasonal work. These are full-time, permanent jobs. 100,000 people, that's an insane. 10 would be ridiculous. 100,000 is absurd. Julie Bauke, what is going on?
Man, 100,000 new people. That's going to make them, once they hire those folks, that's going to make them the second largest employer in the country behind Walmart. So our top two employers are engaged in the process of meeting our demands for stuff.
Yeah, supply chain.
Yeah, right. And certainly our demand for stuff at our front door has jumped dramatically. Now, Walmart's really trying to challenge Amazon in that rapid delivery game. And so it's going to be really interesting to see those two battle it out.
Well, not of them, as I'm talking to you, one of the monitors here, there's a commercial for DHL looking for people that, you think Amazon, but you also have UPS, DHL, Amazon does their own supply, delivery, an hour or less thing. So it's like, when we talk about jobs in America, it's like, oh my God, manufacturing's dead. We don't manufacturing and, we got to get the manufacturing back. We got to get coal mining back. I don't think that's going to happen. We're not in the producing business. We're in the transit business now. That's essentially the old factory job of our grandparents, right?
It is. And I guess the good news for Cincinnati is we are such a hub for that. Mm-hmm. We're a hub for supply chain logistics, moving stuff, because we're ideally located. Yeah. And so, and that just doesn't mean, Uber and DoorDash. I mean, we're talking about moving stuff long distances, and that requires an awful lot of work behind the scenes to get that done. Mm-hmm. So it's not just picking up and transporting goods. As that field grows, you've got operations and logistics and supply chain and accounting and auditing and finance and all the support functions behind the transport logistics field. Because we're a hub, it creates a ripple effect in terms of other needs.
Right. Well, you got to eat, you got to drink, you got to do all those things, and you got to supply those people. But I guess the big thing for me is, and it's interesting now that we're in the new age of COVID, right? There's the pre-COVID, and now the rest of our lives dealing with things like this and diseases and all. Is that it wasn't that long ago, Julie. I remember when Delta decided to move their hub out of CVG, and oh my God, the end is near. The business travelers are we going to lose P&G? Are we going to lose Kroger? Are we going to lose these big Fortune 5 companies? We weathered the storm, and brands like Chiquita left and others. But at the same time, now in COVID, it's like, well, guess what? The airline industry is crashing and burning. I don't mean that. I mean that figuratively, obviously. In that. No one's flying, right? Business travelers go, well, hey, we can do this with Zoom. And in the transition, Cincinnati's become a cargo hub. So cargo is booming now and will continue to have this huge future, whereas passenger travel is dying. We're in a great position here in Cincinnati, aren't we?
We are. And we have more than our share of logistics companies because of that popped up to meet that demand. And like I said, it's not just bringing stuff to your doorstep, but when you really think about if COVID or whatever the next issue is becomes more our norm than our exception, then the demand in not just getting stuff from point A to point B, coast to coast, north to south, but also getting stuff from a warehouse or a center or a location to your doorstep. And and so when you look at where the jobs are really growing, it's very interesting, the industries that are adding jobs, because not everybody's cutting back. There was this fascinating article in ZipRecruiter at ZipRecruiter.com about the 26 industries that have added jobs, and I thought this was an interesting number. The U.S. economy lost 22 million jobs between February and April and has recovered 42% of them as of July. And so then they did this survey on which industries have actually added jobs. So if you're listening and you're like, man, I've been in hospitality, I've been in tourism, travel, any of those things, and I'm done with it. Either it's done with me or I'm done with it. It can go both ways. Where should you be looking? And I suggest you go to ZipRecruiter, because when you look at it, I mean, some of them are really predictable, obviously. Like, number one, warehouse clubs and supercenters added 157,000 jobs. Supermarkets is second with 95,000. But third, building material and garden supply. I mean, who didn't see those lines at Home Depot and Lowe's, right, in the spring?
Well, go to Home Depot's and Lowe's. See if you can find a stick of lumber these days. You can't.
Yes, exactly. Because why? Because everyone's focused internally on doing those home projects. What can I do when I'm at home? The federal government has added 50,000 jobs, probably in a lot of ways to handle a lot of the stress and pressure, whether it's unemployment claims, PPP, all the sort of things that they're having to process. Mm-hmm. Delivery services, messengers. This is children's and infants' clothing stores. Added 10,000 jobs, which I thought was really interesting. Mortgage brokers, surgical appliances, internet publishing, Department of Defense. So there's this list of places where it's like these are the places where they're adding jobs. Now, not all of those jobs may be filled. So if you've got a skill, a talent, an experience, or an interest in one of these areas, your process might be to then go identify who are those companies or organizations in your area or even beyond, because we can work from anywhere now, who might be looking for someone like you. So you want to go where the jobs and the demand is,
right?
And, focus your search there instead of sitting back and saying, well, I'm going to wait until my thing comes back. You may not have that option.
Julie Bauke, our career Sherpa from the Bauke Group, that's Bauke, thebaukegroup.com. She's a career coach in Cincinnati, and talking about the 26 industries for job growth and how Cincinnati is so well poised right now because of the move towards logistics. Air travel, when we think of that and how the airline industry is not doing well at all, they're going to have to contract and downsize because people are just not going to travel. Business travelers aren't going to do what they used to do before COVID. But well, that means we're staying home longer, and we're also having everything shipped to us door to door, same day and all that. That is tremendous that we've become more of a hub in Cincinnati for air traffic than passenger service, which initially when it happened, we thought this is the end of the world. And now here it is 15 years later, 20 years later, and going, this is a godsend. So we are on the right end of this whole disaster that is COVID-19 for the foreseeable future, and it's up to you to obviously capitalize on that. And so as people transition out of old world jobs, I guess pre-COVID jobs, there's plenty of out there in this particular sector. One of the things you hear, though, Julie, is, yeah, well, you know what, it's not a living wage. We're not making. Typically, what is someone going to make entry level in logistics or in one of the fields you mentioned?
Yeah, it depends. So if you're working in the warehouse, I think what's Amazon paying these days? It's well into
$16 an hour, I think.
16, $17 an hour. My guess would be in the other logistics companies, all the local firms that are a lot obviously smaller than Amazon have to pay right in that range as a starting. And they generally are going to be offering, I read that Amazon's offering things like hiring bonuses.
Yes.
They're going to be offering benefits. But remember, it's not just people in the warehouse. You've got to have IT folks, HR folks, accounting, finance, people that are doing the planning behind the scenes. Aren't just driving the trucks or delivering the stuff. There's planning and operations, project management behind the scenes. And so I would recommend that you get onto the Inquirer site or the Business Courier site, or go to the library and talk to a librarian about how do I put together a list of those companies in Cincinnati that fit into the industries on ZipRecruiter.com, and then how do I approach them directly and get my resume into their database and take a look on their website at their openings. You've got to go where the demand is.
Correct. Yes. You go and hey, you know what? I want to be. I don't know. I just saw a story about today about mining, for example. I know the days of mining you're gonna have, but how much demand is that for mining these days? Or what's going to happen with autonomous trucks? What about the truck driving field? And what about these other areas that we talk about all the time? And people complain, hey, I can't make $15 an hour at McDonald's. Well, you're going to make more and get benefits in fields. I mention construction all the time, but I'd include logistics in there. And even if you are a lower skilled worker, if you are going to school or considering getting an education, a certificate, whatever, in a logistics, you're going to be making really, really good money from the jump, aren't you?
Yeah, and also, funny you mentioned that, because there was also an article that I read that said that high school graduates, the job picture is picking up for them as well, because as and also jobs are going to come open, like with people who had to quit their jobs because they had to stay home with the kids to do the education. And so employers are broadening their scope in terms of how they're looking at, do we really need that college degree? And so any sort of situation like we're in, if you are somebody who can go in, solve problems, be flexible, be easy to get along with, really make a difference and solve problems and run operations and just be the kind of employer that the kind of employee that employers are looking for, things like, do I have a 4-year degree, fall away. And so I think the entire job and career landscape, it's in the middle of changing. We don't know what it's going to look like, but don't get caught in talking yourself out of, well, they won't talk to me because. Yeah. Or I don't have this, or I don't have that, so I'm just going to sit here. You've got to think more broadly about your skills, and you also have to be able to tell your story so that you can connect the dots between what you can do and what an organization needs, and that's not going to happen with you sitting on the couch.
Yeah, and that's a great way to look at it too. And this is going to be politicized with the election coming up, obviously, and there's no jobs and no opportunity, but there is. You're just looking in the old places. You're looking in the wrong spot. You're looking where the job used to be, but it's moved over here. In history, Julie, that's nothing new though in America, is it?
No, not at all. And I think we are in a time right now where everything is changing so quickly, and we also don't see an end to sort of this contraction and this COVID stuff. And so it's hard to know how we're going to come out on the end. And if you're a person who really likes to have your life planned or your week planned or your day planned, you're really suffering. But think about this. Tourism, moving people in an airplane from here to there. The need is still there, but we're moving things instead of people. So right. Amazon has a fleet of planes, DHL, FedEx. And so if you were really good at planning and logistics working for Delta, then I betcha somebody's looking for you at one of the freight transportation companies. And so start to really think about, how can I transfer my knowledge, my skills, and experience into something where there is more in demand? Just because you've been in one industry for the last 10 to 15 years doesn't mean you're destined to stay there.
Yeah, I mean, if you work on the ramp and let's say you fuel jets, does it matter if it's carrying people or packages? No, but now if you're same with a pilot, right? Does it matter what you're flying? Right. But now if you're a flight attendant, that's a different story.
Exactly.
Those are the areas you're a reservation specialist or something like that. Those are the jobs that probably aren't going to be around. There's no question that the airline industry is going to have to contract, as we know it, because what drove the industry is business travelers. If I run a company, small, medium, or large, and I go, hey, listen, I don't have to fly my people halfway around the world to have face-to-faces to be told, no, we're not going to buy your product. If I could do that with a Zoom call, it looks like that's pretty clearly the way we're headed, right?
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting, too, to see, because back in the old days, only people who had a certain amount of money could afford to travel. Well, if the airlines have to contract, they may need to raise their prices to survive. And so we may have to go back to wearing pantyhose and heels and our white gloves on airplanes.
We'll go back to the golden age where you're pricing deadbeats out like me.
And you're smoking on the airplane.
Yeah. You're used to service in Delta One, and I'm back in steerage with my cooler. I'm not going to be able to afford a ticket anymore. So
and please don't make eye contact when you pass me in the aisle.
Elitists like you and Cunningham are not going to have to put up with low rent people like myself. So Julie Bauke, our career Sherpa, the Bauke Group, that's Bauke, thebaukegroup.com. She's a career coach, the best here in Cincinnati, and joins us Wednesdays talking about your career. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
See ya. Bye.